I feel so dumb recording this shit, but I'm not doing the intro, bro. I'm not doing the intro. The Celtics lose to the Miami Heat. I don't even know what the final score is. I cut it off. I don't usually let my feelings get in the way of my work, but I truly did not want to make this video for obvious reasons. If you're a Celtics fan or you understand what a Celtics fan might be going through, I could tell by the opening possessions, like, the energy wasn't there. Even though we lost game 2, I seen Rob on the first few possessions. I saw some hustle in the first few possessions, and I was like, okay, I like the way they play. They're not perfect. They're not doing everything right. They're doing some dumbass shit. The coaches making some dumbass adjustments, but at least they're playing. Game 2 was not an energy thing. It wasn't an effort thing. From the first possession of game 3, I knew this was an effort game. And I knew that they weren't going to come out with enough energy to beat this Miami Heat team. I completely knew that shit was going to happen. And it's just, everybody is at fault here. Fucking Tatum and Brown. Jaylen Brown is just like, Jaylen Brown started off finally trying to like turn around his horrible series. But then he's just prone to do dumb shit, bro. Like, I don't like, he has been a very efficient scorer, a play finisher, a guy that doesn't have to do all these crossovers to get his shot off. He hits insanely tough shots. And he's been a guy who has been one of the best shot makers and has remained efficient in this league. And it's just this series, and when he plays Miami and the help defenders, it just throws him off. And then he comes out in the third quarter, just starts jacking threes. Him and Tatum, at the point I cut it off, were 1 for 12 from 3. And in the third quarter, I can honestly say that the Celtics were getting wide open threes. They just weren't hitting them. It's just a lot that went wrong. You know, the defense hasn't been championship tier all year. When Joe Mazzulla took over as head coach, his ideology of basketball is the complete opposite of Ime, right? Ime was a defense first guy. It's, we're gonna put all our chips on the defensive side. If we play defense at a historic level, which they did for the second half of the season and into the playoffs, we're gonna be great, right? They made it to the finals, lost in 6. Joe Mazzulla's philosophy is, okay, we're gonna beat teams with offense, right? We're gonna shoot more threes, we're gonna make more threes, and at the end of the game, the opposing team won't be able to make up the 3-point differential, and we're gonna blow teams out. The first 26 games of the season, Celtics started 21-5. They were moving the ball. Players were moving without the ball. They were getting great threes. They were getting open threes, and they were blowing teams out because they would hit 23s. The other team would hit 10. You're not making up a 30-point difference. It started off great, but then at some point you have to play defense, and at some point all the threes aren't going to fall. You're not going to make 19 to 18 threes every game. And the Heat effectively took away the 3-point shot the first 2 games. They did it for the first half of this game. And in the third quarter, the Celtics were actually getting great threes. They just weren't hitting because they weren't used to having open threes at that point. So they just start breaking everything. And it's just, everybody is to blame here. Like, I've seen people try to place more blame on the coach, talking about he should be fired. I honestly don't give a fuck about him being fired or not, but he should not be the topic of blame, bro. He should not be the number one reason. The coach is the easiest thing to blame in the NBA. It's the easiest thing, because I do understand that it's easier to fire a coach than to trade like a Jaylen Brown or a Tatum. I understand that, bro, but this shit gotta stop, bro. Like, Joe Mazzulla is not the main reason the Celtics are in this position. Yes, he is a part of it. He has not been perfect. He hasn't even been close to perfect. I don't think he's been good in this series. The coach's job, again, is to do whatever they can to give their players an advantage. That's what a coach does. He has not done that. So he is part of the blame. But there's no way in hell you can sit here and tell me that you're watching Jaylen Brown playing basketball and you're telling me that Joe Mazzulla is a bigger reason to blame than Jaylen Brown, than the mental toughness this team has, which is none, than Al Horford shooting 43% from the 3 in the regular season and going absolutely cold this entire playoff run. There's no way you can tell me that's over Joe, because that fucks over his entire philosophy. Al Horford starting is 5 players on the court that can shoot the ball, right? And then you have Brogdon coming off, who was 0 for 6 into this game, which is fucking ridiculous, who also shoots over 40%. Then in the regular season, it was also Sam Hauser in that mix. So Al Horford goes completely cold, your starting lineup is now the same, not the same, but spacing wise is the same if Rob was out there. And Rob has been tremendous in these last 2 games, especially on the offensive side, which nobody even expected. It's not all on Joe. And it's not majority on Joe either. It's just the shit isn't. The Celtics players are not mentally tougher. They're not tougher than the Heat players. The Heat role players thoroughly outplayed the Celtics role players. That's just how it's been. Caleb Martin is averaging 20 points. Gabe Vincent, when I turned the game off, had 18 points, and he only missed like 1 shot. Brogdon was over 6 when I turned the game off. Who else is scoring? And then if Tatum and Brown aren't hitting threes, aren't scoring, the game's fucking over. This is one thing I will say about Joe, right? The lack of adjustments on the defensive side is just mind-boggling, bro. So, actually, he made an adjustment, but it's just, I'll tell you this. So, look, the first 2 games, right, they're coming at Jimmy, right, giving no wide open threes, and even when they weren't doubling him, they were just leaving Caleb Martin, Max Strus, and Duncan Robinson wide open. Now, before this series, if you told me the Celtics would force Caleb Martin to beat them from the 3-point line, I would say okay. Let's see how that goes. Because Caleb Martin isn't the greatest shooter, so I'd be like, okay, cool. But once you see him drop 15 points in game 1, you see him drop, 25 in game 2, there is no reason you come out and play the same coverages in game 3. He had, 8 or 10 points in the first quarter, and that was the difference because the Celtics were down 8. And then you see Gabe Vincent just seemingly hitting every shot. You're leaving Max Strus and Duncan Robinson to go double team. Make it make sense. Those are the best shooters on the team. How does that make sense? Now, the Celtics were double teaming heavier in this game, but where they got caught at was they were double teaming lazily and not at the right time. The Celtics get a lot of credit for how they play Joel Embiid because they do a great job of double teaming at the right time and not just sprinting over there all wild and shit. There were some possessions where they double teamed Jimmy in the first half of this game and they forced a turnover or they forced a tough shot because they went over there with a plan and at the right time and hands high, and the help defenders weren't just standing there. They were up into the passing lane, so he couldn't just make one easy pass right beside him. But then there were way more times where they double teamed late and it was lazy and nobody kept their defensive positioning other than the guys that were trapping him, and he was just making one pass, and after that it's over because that guy's either gonna shoot it or he's passing it around, and now the rotations are shit and they're getting a wide open shot. So I don't know how they can come out playing the same defense that they played and trusting it when it has burnt them the first 2 games. And it's the role players. Like, yes, Jimmy comes through in the clutch, but what kept them in game 1, the first half, was Kyle Lowry. He had 13 points in the second quarter, and the Celtics were still up 11 at halftime, but that kept them in the game. That kept them within striking distance. Game 2, Caleb Martin had 25 points. Where would they be without their role players? The first game, Kyle Lowry, Gabe Vincent, Strus, and Caleb all had 15 points. Each of them had 15 points. You're not going to win like that. So I hope the Celtics don't get swept. I don't want to be a part of them going out like that, but the Miami Heat are the better team. I don't want to hear the talent shit. The Heat are talented at the things that matter, and that's why the Celtics are losing this series. So, but if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe, share it to any and everyone you can. I greatly appreciate it. This is Nick. Peace.